Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, episode 281, Rethinking the Ache.
Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, the only podcast that offers a proven process to help you work through your grief, to grow, evolve, and create a future you can truly look forward to. Here's your host, Master Certified Life Coach, Grief Expert, Widow, and Mom, Krista St-Germain.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast. How are you? We have reached mid-October. How are you? I'm doing well. I am missing my daughter, I will say. She's in Argentina until December, and I'm missing her. And that's kind of the ache that I want to talk about today. I know you might be experiencing the ache about your person. I don't feel that so much anymore about Hugo, but I did. And what I mean by the ache is that yearning that we experience, that longing. Sometimes it feels like a pain or a throb or just like a gnawing, maybe. There's probably lots of different words we could use to describe it, but it's like this urge to be with them, to find them. So that's what this podcast episode is about. I will tell you before we get into it, I'm not ready for it yet, but I want to plant a little seed, which is that, again, this year, we're going to do my Happier Holidays for Widows event. Doing it differently this year, but holidays tend to be a rough time for us as widows. And I know that there are some concrete things that we can do to make that time easier. And so that's what the Happier Holidays event is all about. It'll be online. And when the time comes and I have registration information, I'll be sure to mention it on the podcast. But I just want you to have that in your mind. If you're already starting to feel some dread around the holidays, totally normal. And Happier Holidays is coming. So just wanted to let you know that. So, okay, let's talk about the ache and how we can think about it. I want you to think about when you have experienced this ache, yearning, however you call it. And what I'm not talking about is, I'm not talking about a sense of hopelessness or a sense of powerlessness or a sense of despair. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the insecurity that we sometimes feel or the anxiousness that we might feel. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that physical feeling that you have when you miss them, and it's an ache. So what has that experience been like for you when it has happened? What has your mind offered you about that ache? What has your brain made the presence of that ache mean about you, about your grief? Because a lot of us have brains that are making that ache into a problem it doesn't need to be, right? Mary Frances O'Connor, who wrote The Grieving Brain, and she was on an episode of the Widowed Mom podcast a while ago. I forget which episode, but definitely search and listen to that one if you haven't. But she talks about in her book how yearning is really just our brain's natural way of making sure that our attachment needs get met, right? That this person has become so important to us that when we can't find them, because we have learned that they are important and our brain has encoded that, then this ache that we feel can be a way of motivating us to find them, to not give up on searching for them. It doesn't have anything to do with what we intellectually know, which is that they're not coming back, right? It's still kind of that silent message, find them, don't give up. And so most people who work in grief, we know that this is normal, right? We know that the ache is normal. We know that yearning is normal. It's not something that needs fixing. It's not a problem to solve. But when you have it and you tell yourself, I don't want this, I shouldn't feel like this is too much, this is never going to go away, this is awful, I wish this would stop. Maybe your brain does it slightly differently, but notice what you notice when you feel that ache and then what your brain makes that mean. Then how do you feel? Right? We've got the ache. There's that happening. That's one experience. And then our brain comes along and interprets that and makes it mean something. And sometimes that interpretation makes it harder. And that's what I'm talking about. Can we rethink the ache? Instead of telling ourselves an awful story about the ache, could we tell ourselves a supportive story about something that's very normal in grief and not at all a problem to solve. And maybe that's what it might sound like. Maybe that's what you tell yourself. Oh yeah, this is the part where I feel that ache. I did love them. I do love them. This is normal. This is grief. This too, right, shall fade. Maybe it never goes away, so what? But we ache because they mattered to us, so much so that a part of us doesn't want to give up on finding them. And what a beautiful thing. I love the term beautiful. I can't even say it right. Right? It's brutal and beautiful. Brutiful. It's brutal and it's beautiful. I feel like maybe I got that from Glennon Doyle. I'm not sure who I got that from. But it's that feeling, right? Where it's like, it's brutal. And also, it's beautiful. It's only there because there was something amazing in my life. And a part of me doesn't want to give up on that. And that's why I feel this ache. It's a sign of something that mattered. It's a sign of how deeply I loved someone. It's a sign of how much I had opened my heart. It's a sign of me being a human who has lost their person. And I can tell myself a story about the ache that then makes the ache easier for me instead of harder. And that's really it. That's what I wanted to offer you today. Notice the story that your brain is telling you about the ache. Podcast I did a couple of weeks ago on first thoughts in grief, same thing. Notice the first thought. If it moves you away from what you want, pick a new one. How do you want to think about the ache? Because that work is yours to do. All right? Okay, that's what I have for you this week. Remember, I love you. You've got this. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and want to create a future you can truly get excited about even after the loss of your spouse, I invite you to join my Mom Goes On coaching program. It's small group coaching just for widowed moms like you, where I'll help you figure out what's holding you back and give you the tools and support you need so you can move forward with confidence. Please don't settle for a new normal that's less than what you deserve. Go to coachingwithkrista.com and click Work With Me for details and next steps. I can't wait to meet you.